beautiful story, but they also have that innovation and that science that really brings forth confidence in the efficacy of these products. So, with that, we're first going to start with Giant Byoungpool. And as I've mentioned, when we talk about Giant Byoungpool and we talk about Jeju Lava Energy Water, we're talking about the traditional. These ingredients are traditional because they have withstood the test of time, and now they are simply maximized in their efficacy with modern day science. So Giant Byoungpool is actually native to Asia. It's also grown in Southeast Asia, India, and even sub-Saharan Africa. It's also, of course, native to Jeju Island. The histories that taught, or rather tout Giant Byoungpool and its various benefits are well spread in that regard. There's specific texts saying that tigers were known to roll in these leaves to heal their wounds after they battled, but it's also associated with longevity in Sri Lanka, and even in Ayurvedic medicine, it's revered as a wound healing and mind clearing active. So, with all of these different histories that Byoungpool holds, it has many different names. It's Asiatic pennywort, it's tiger grass because of those tigers rolling, but it's also gotu kola. I would say most commonly, especially from an ingredient standpoint, it is known as Centella asiatica. And so Centella asiatica is its INCI name. This is what you're going to see on the ingredient list of any product containing Byoungpool. What's actually unique about the use of the word Byoungpool is that this is the Korean word for Centella asiatica, and it was most often used verbally. It was never really written down. So when Riemann started really capitalizing on this giant Byoungpool story, we actually had it spelled differently, and the North American market was able to kind of characterize the new spelling of Byoungpool as you see here. So like kind of be young pool, appreciating this herb for its youthful properties that it can bring to your skin. So that's just kind of a cool little tidbit about that giant Byoungpool that in and of itself is a little bit of history behind it, specifically with Riemann. So where do we get this giant Byoungpool? So, as we mentioned last week, we have Ask Labs and we have Ask Base, which are two companies owned and established by Riemann to really govern innovation. And within Ask Base, which is our manufacturing and processing plant on Jeju Island, we have a smart farm to grow that giant Byoungpool. So, this smart farm, as I've mentioned, is located specifically in the Jeju Lava Water Research Center, and it's controlled and monitored by Riemann for consistent plant growth. So we not only monitor temperature, humidity, and the soil, but we even monitor the exact growth period for peak cultivation and even that harvest time. So I had the pleasure of actually finally visiting the Smart Farm last fall, I believe, when we had our Riemann retreats to Riemann Village, and it's a gigantic facility. There are 62 individual beds growing this giant Byoungpool, 15,000 square feet, and it's, of course, neighboring a research center as well. And so we went into that research center, and it was really unique in that there are smaller beds to really look at the specific cultivation of the leaves that we could then apply, massively to that larger 15,000 foot smart farm, excuse me. So in this picture specifically, this guy is actually Dr. Saw. He's the head of the Byoungpool Institute. He fantastically taught me so many different things about Giant Byoungpool. We actually had a tradition meets innovation call with him back in 2023, and he let me know how invested we were in the specific growth of this giant Byoungpool. While Byoungpool is native to Jeju Island, when we came to officially grow it for ourselves and for utilization in our products, it was much too hot. Specifically, it was a summer where it was 60 degrees Celsius outside, and so these leaves were just not growing with all their nutrient density, with the healthy greenness that we were looking for. And so we brought the growth of those leaves indoors into this smart farm. And since then, we've committed to ensuring the smart farm is top notch, is basically the not only self-sufficient way to grow giant Byoungpool, but it's really also maintaining sustainable growth of that giant Byoungpool. So with that in mind, with all of Dr. Saw's input, with Mr. On's dedication to also finding ways to improve the smart farm, we at Riemann are actually the first company that will be vertically integrated into the controlled growth of giant Byoungpool. And so that's amazing. First is always something that we want to achieve. And so we'll be the first vertically integrated in this growth. And really to kind of maximize the efforts we put towards this smart farm, Mr. On actually visited a company called Priva, which is in the Netherlands, and they are top of the line engineering in terms of smart farm growth. And so we learned so much from them and how we can maximize the growth of this giant Byoungpool in a smart farm setting. So with that smart farm in mind, the plant itself that we are growing, as many of you know, is a patented plant for Rheemon. And this is largely where that Rheemon difference rests, because this plant is only for our use. It is patented for our use. If you can see on the left with that plant patent, the title holder is Ask Company, which is Rheemon's parent company. So with these specific cultivation challenges, as I had mentioned, we had brought the growth of the Byoungpool indoors. And when we did so, we were actually able to illuminate that there was a synergistic growth benefit with growing Byoungpool using Jeju lava energy water. So when you utilize Jeju lava energy water on standard Byoungpool leaves, they actually result in leaves that are 3 to 4 times larger in size in comparison to that standard Byoungpool. Once we confirm this, we had to register it. And so in order to register a new plant variety, it must actually pass a 3-year cultivation test for trait stability. So really, we have to make sure that those 3 to 4 times larger leaves always exist through every batch of every growth of giant Byoungpool. And that, of course, was confirmed, and we received exclusive cultivation rights, which we now hold for 20 years. So one of the most easy things, or one of the easiest things rather, to say about the Rheemon difference is that we have this giant Byoungpool. No one else has this giant Byoungpool, and because of that greater area of the leaf size, there is greater benefits in regards to application, both externally on our skin and internally upon consumption. For example, in something like the Beauty Collagen Ampule. So when I actually interviewed, so to speak, Dr. Saw during that Tradition Meets Innovation call, he really took me through the extensive efforts that went towards patenting this ingredient. And so when they had that cultivation agency come and study the giant Byoungpool, they had to make sure that each seed, each plant was growing specifically in a way that was predictable, such that we could then patent the ingredient. So it's a fantastic and very in-depth process to receive a plant patent and exclusive cultivation rights, and we of course have done so with the giant Byoungpool. So with that in mind, as I mentioned, the giant Byoungpool does have some benefits for our body. So Byoungpool, which I mentioned is also known as tiger grass, Asiatic pennywort, it's very beautiful for sensitive skin. And I like to appreciate sensitive skin as the most vulnerable baseline skin type, such that this plant can really achieve benefits for even the more robust skin types, such as oily, combination, etc. And so some of its characteristic benefits include soothing and calming irritated skin, providing hydration, and even improving the skin barrier. But this is true of any Centella asiatica, any standard Centella asiatica. So we had to commit to the research to find out what was special about the giant Byoungpool specifically. And so one of the greatest things about the fact that we are growing these leaves ourselves is that we only ever use them in their fresh form. They are never dried. So as you can see in the photo here, we have our giant Byoungpool, all beautiful and green. We have some from Madagascar and some from Indonesia, but these samples specifically are dried before they're shipped. And many companies will do this because it lowers the cost of shipping of this raw material, of course, by removing some of the water weight. But when you do so, you actually remove some of the water-soluble components that are beneficial to the human body, such as water-soluble vitamins. And so in understanding the importance of every single part of these plants, we make sure to harvest them, of course, at their peak growth period, so that's roughly 2 months, and take them directly to the extraction process so that we can get as many nutrients and phytonutrients as we can into our finished goods. And so with that in mind, as you can see here, here's that comparison between the two leaves. The giant Byoungpool is significantly larger, 3 to 4 times larger, as I've mentioned, and that standard Byoungpool much smaller. But the largeness, the grandiosity of that giant Byoungpool comes with additional benefits in terms of the nutrient content. Because of the greater area of the leaf size, there is a higher polyphenol content. This directly correlates to greater antioxidant activity. Because we are so passionate about research, though, we also submitted giant Byoungpool to various different studies, and I'll illuminate those in a couple slides later. But we also found that it actually has a significant anti-wrinkle effect and the ability to reduce hyperpigmentation. And this is fantastic because if you may remember, or perhaps you didn't know, the Dermatology EX products, so the booster of the serum and the active cream, are extremely high in concentration of this giant Byoungpool leaf extract. So you're getting all that benefit. You're getting the antioxidants, but you're also getting reduction in hyperpigmentation and even skin support, so to speak. When we dive in even deeper, when we look at these nutrients from really that scientific side, there are many different plant components within the giant Byoungpool leaves. Some are less important for performance or necessarily performance on the skin. Some might have more performance internally, but what's most important is to really focus on these various triterpenes and their glycosides. You do not need to remember these. You do not need to remember the scientific names for them, but it's just interesting to point out what's really going on at a molecular level. So I've listed here the four main molecules, so to speak, that can be derived from Byoungpool. And oftentimes many companies will isolate one of these and they'll have, a maticasic acid serum or an asiatic acid serum. But there is a huge importance in having these all together in combination. Specifically, when we look at the various different extracts, they each have their own performances, but some of those performances do overlap. And when they exist together in formulation, they can actually work synergistically to improve the efficacy of that product. For example, asiatic acid, as listed here, it offers antioxidant power, but it also offsets the triggers of sun damage and skin aging. Furthermore, studies suggest that it actually can stimulate the fibroblast cells for collagen synthesis. And this is something we'll actually touch on next week when we go through skin physiology and Riemann. But the fibroblasts are specifically cell types existing within your middle layer of skin in your dermis, and it's important to help them continue to create collagen, as collagen is the most important structural protein in the body. We get that maticasic acid as well. This is largely known for its soothing and hydrating properties, while the maticasoside, which is the glycoside, is known mainly for, again, antioxidant and anti-inflammatory properties. But what's really cool is another study suggested when used in a mix with asiaticoside, asiatic acid, and maticasic acid specifically. So all these things in together, but specifically the main performer, maticasic acid, can actually help prompt the creation of the natural moisturizing factor hyaluronic acid in our skin. Many of you may know hyaluronic acid is one of the most popular ingredients in the industry. It's in basically everything, but this helps your skin make its own natural moisturizing factor, which is huge. And this really bases in Riemann's difference in the sense that not only are you putting something on your face, but you're kind of reorienting the health of your cells and how that they can really sustain that health. So with that all in mind, you also have the polyphenols, as I mentioned, which again bring additional antioxidant activity. And you also have vitamins such as vitamin C and B, along with a variety of other essential minerals. So what may look like a simple and large leaf has so many potent benefits and possibilities for application in both skin, hair, and of course, internally as well. So as I mentioned, in terms of the research, because the giant Byoungpool is ours and because we are committed to innovation, we have that entire branch of research at Ask Labs, which is the Byoungpool Research Institute. And so the Byoungpool Research Institute actually collaborated with various universities in Seoul to see what else this plant could do for our skin. And so as you can see up here, this is just a basic paper explaining the characteristic differences and the differences in nutrient content between standard Byoungpool and giant Byoungpool. And so this is something you can access online if you wish to read it, but really there are characteristic differences that are measurable. But specifically with the studies we have performed with various universities, this is what I had mentioned in the beginning. With Seoul National University, we were able to illuminate the anti-wrinkle effect. With Jeonbuk National University, I apologize if I said that incorrectly, we were able to illuminate an anti-inflammatory property. Furthermore, again, with Seoul National University, we also found that brightening effect, that reduction in hyperpigmentation. Furthermore, with Suwon Science College, we actually looked at the fermented byproduct of Byoungpool, essentially creating a lactobacillus species, which itself has beneficial properties for the skin microbiome. So what I have shown here is not the limit of the research we're doing with giant Byoungpool, as we have an entire branch solely dedicated to that research. But this is just some of the concrete science we have behind an otherwise amazing plant. But Without further ado, let's then transition to that second hero ingredient, that second traditional ingredient, which of course is Jeju lava energy water. And before we even begin in understanding the majesty of Jeju lava energy water, I have here that traditional formulas can contain up to 80% distilled water. Water is the most common solvent in the personal care industry, and oftentimes when I was formulating, when I was previously a cosmetic chemist, it's very easy to utilize water to bulk up a formula. So if we had, for example, if I had a client that was trying to make a very cost-effective shampoo, a lot of that shampoo is going to be water. A lot of that body wash is going to be water. Most of what you see on the shelves in drugstores are going to be large in water content because it gives you a good amount of product for less money. But in doing so, that water itself has no benefit. Of course, it is a solvent, it adds to the stability, it has formula benefits, but for your skin, for your hair, and for your body, really does not have much benefit. So when we turn to Jeju lava energy water, that's when the story changes. So on Jeju Island, roughly 400,000 years ago, a volcano began to form, and this is known as Halasan. So beneath Halasan is volcanic bedrock, so to speak, and the surrounding seawater began to filter through this bedrock and was essentially being freed of any heavy metals or impurities and actually picking up essential minerals from this bedrock such that this aqueous resource has tested benefits in skin hydration. What's important to note, as I've listed here, is that it is a stable water resource. It maintains salt, pH, and temperature levels year round, and that's crucial to maintain dependability of our products. The fact that we are really playing a first-hand role in the accrual of both the giant Byoungpool and the Jeju lava energy water, we have to make sure that we're playing with that responsibility of creating consistent products and quality products at that. So having something that's stable naturally is crucial to that story. But what's also unique is that this is actually the most quality location of this resource. So Hawaii, Spain, and Japan all have volcanic water as well, but many of these locations are either filled with too much sand, they're too deep to access easily, or there's some other impurity within that water that makes it inaccessible or otherwise unusable for products. Specifically with Jeju lava energy water, it is the perfect for application for human use. And so specifically with this water, and because of that filtering and then picking up of those essential minerals, there is a healthy mineral composition in this aqueous resource. And so that's what that chart is here up to the right. So you can see we of course have salt, we have magnesium, calcium, but then we also get silicon, we have selenium, zinc, and these have benefits for the skin. And I have to note as well that we're looking at that Jeju lava energy water in comparison to deep sea water. So you can see that it has a higher content in comparison to traditional deep sea water. Also important to note is, of course, high in salt, high in magnesium. We go through desalination processes. So we're removing that salt before we put it into your booster, into your serum, into the radiance and products, whatever it may be. So you're not getting a dose of salt with every remon ritual. But as I've also mentioned, very stable in regards to its various qualities, temperature, pH, salt. So that's what you can see in this chart below. The lava seawater is this pink line, and throughout the year, we have a lot of different variation between the surface water, the bottom water, but little to no variation with the lava seawater specifically. So it stays pretty consistent in both pH, salt content, and temperature year round. And so once again, we want to back all this majesty of such a traditional ingredient with research. And so Jeju Lava Energy Water has fantastic public research documents that you again can access and read. These are just general research not done by Remon, but something just backs our use of this specific resource. So this top paper actually cites the specific ability of Jeju Lava Energy Water to inhibit melanogenesis. And so again, we'll go into more in depth next week when we talk about skin physiology, but melanogenesis is the pathway through which your skin creates melanin or pigment. Sometimes having this pathway permanently on creates hyperpigmentation, kind of those dark spots you don't want. So utilizing specific Jeju magma seawater actually can inhibit that melanogenesis pathway. And it's just water. So that's crazy to think about. But furthermore, as I mentioned, we have the most important document, which is that skin hydration effect of Jeju lava seawater. It actually has a benefit for your skin in terms of hydration, which cannot be said for distilled or deionized water, which is what is most often used in the industry. Furthermore, this bottom deck actually goes one step further and actually looks at the consumption of Jeju lava energy water. And it was specifically performed in rice and found, or rice, mice. It was able to actually find that it improves lipid metabolism. So essentially fat burning in mice. But more research is to be done in this category as well. But again, that Jeju lava energy water is that perfect marriage of a traditional story and modern day science, which is the Rimon tradition meets innovation as we know and love. So now that we've gone through the Byoungpool and of course that Jeju lava energy water, we can now go through the creation of the Byoungpool leaf water. So the creation of the Byoungpool leaf water is a very in-depth process. There's so much to do in regards to processing those two separate extracts on their own, to cultivate the leaves, and of course to purify the water for use on human skin. But then we of course marry them together to create our Byoungpool leaf extract. So with the specific creation of the Byoungpool leaf extract, we have two different rounds of cleaning just to make sure that those leaves are completely clear of any debris or any dirt. But then we also have time sterilization. So it's going to get rid of any bacteria or microbial species that cannot be seen to the human eye. Finally, the leaves are put in with the Jeju lava energy water to extract. And so this is really done through heat control and circulation to get all those phytonutrients out of the leaves and into the Jeju lava energy water to create our Byoungpool leaf extract. We then filter and transfer this to remove all that leaf matter and then have another antibacterial processing. So this ensures again that we're maintaining a completely sterile extract. We don't want any bacterial contamination. We then package it and go through further inspection quality control. So what's fantastic about all of this is that 15 tons of giant Byoungpool leaves produces enough extract for 1 million products. So that's insane. That's just 15 tons of Byoungpool, which I know 15 tons is a lot, but makes 1 million different products. So that just kind of gives you an idea of the processing and manufacturing that goes around at Ask Base. And so one thing I wanted to mention that I had missed on the previous slides is specifically with the smart farm and the growth of our giant Byoungpool. When I got to visit it on Jeju Island, it's fascinating in the sense that yes, we control the temperature, the salinity, the soil, all that stuff, but we otherwise leave it alone. And so the leaves themselves grow utilizing osmotic pressure. Basically, they are planted in a specific sand-like soil that brings up that Jeju lava energy water as the plants need it. So once we've set everything, we've set the water, we've set, the soil, all that, we leave them alone and they grow. And so I believe when we visited last fall, that was the last time that those rooms were not going to be blocked off by large glass walls. So we were actually able to walk through each of those 62 beds, but otherwise they'll be blocked off with large glass walls because they're meant to just do their thing and to grow.